Welcome to Relationship Equity, a podcast that explores how successful people cultivate meaningful connections with others in their personal and professional lives. Learn from the stories, insights, and advice of leaders, innovators, and influencers who have built strong bonds with their teams, their customers, their communities, and their families. Here's Richard Walker.
Today I'm joined by Melissa Flicek from Blue Cross and Blue Shield in Minnesota and Jim Graham from the National Marrow Donor Program, two CIOs who know that building strong relationships is just as important as building a world-class technology organization. They'll share how trust, collaboration, and people-first leadership have helped them drive transformation and deliver real business value. Jim, Melissa, welcome to the podcast. Let's have some fun.
Sounds great, Richard. Thank you for the invite.
Happy to be here, Richard.
Well, let's do this. Let's kind of level set. And you two are both, there's a lot of, everybody's different. We all have differences of opinion, differences of styles, but there's also some common links between people and commonalities between personalities and traits. And you two, I have the utmost respect for a number of different reasons, not just because what you've achieved in your careers. And I've watched and worked with you both and seen your careers grow, and you've both reached the top of the respective ladder in your profession, which is a very difficult thing to do. And I want to talk a little bit about those people that actually achieve what you did and those that don't and why they don't. We're going to shelve that for a second. What I'd like to do is, one of the things that you both share as well is you're both very modest. And I'm going to ask you not to be in this context so that people can understand the key things. And it's never one thing, but there are no doubt turning points in your career and key things that you did that enabled you to reach the top of that proverbial technology ladder. So I'd like for each of you to share some of those things that you felt were pivotal in your careers that enabled you to reach the top of that ladder. So let's start with you, Melissa, if you don't mind.
For me, I think it boils down to a few things. And that is, I have incredible curiosity, I think, just naturally. So I want to understand why something works a certain way or how we could do something a certain way. I want to understand the business strategy so I can align it to a technical strategy. And I'll ask a million questions to get to that. I simply have just a huge desire to know and to understand. I think another thing is I have tremendous passion for talent management and truly helping others reach their highest potential and identifying talent and helping to challenge them or helping people that are struggling get in the right roles or the right company for that matter, if that's the right thing. And I think finally for me, authenticity is really important. It's really important for me to kind of be who I am. I mean, I've led tech teams for my whole career. And at times, being a woman, I was sometimes the only woman at that table. Not so much where I am now, but what made it interesting is I never felt differently about talking about my love for the Real Housewives and Bravo or the new shoes I was buying. I still felt really comfortable being myself and building teams where they could be themselves and talk about stuff I don't understand, like Star Trek and Star Wars and things like that. But to build teams that truly are authentic, where I can be my authentic self.
The true housewives of what?
The real housewives of you pick the city. I will talk about it offline. I could probably get you hooked on Beverly Hills, I'm thinking.
Well, you certainly can on shoes, because I have a bit of a thing for shoes as well. Different flavors of shoes, but you've seen some of my shoes, Melissa. I like to wear different ones. Jim, your thoughts, please.
Yeah, I've got a few different themes that kind of resonate and how it helped me get to where I'm at today. First of all, I learned from some of the best. And as I look back at kind of my career journey, I've sat in some chairs alongside of some brilliant technology and some brilliant leaders. And I always like to say that I've been in the right chair at the right time. And there was one position where 6 of my peers went on to be CIOs and CTOs in one organization. And it was just being in the right spot at the right time. Some of that was luck and some of that was happenstance. That's one. I think the second is I love to coach. And that started way back. I used to teach tennis, went on to teach some college, and just love to work with people. And similar to what Melissa said, get the best out of people. The third is business acumen. And I'd like to say that I'm a technologist in a business suit. And I love to understand the business. So as I took on a new role recently, the first 3 months was really spent majority of my time with business leaders, just really trying to dive into the business and what makes the business tick, where are all the levers to pull, how do the finances work, some of the business processes, shadowed business, went and spent time at the different locations, etc., and tried to tear apart the business and really understand it. And without that, you really can't wrap the right automation around it. So really understanding the business. Similar to Melissa, relationships, team building, and really getting the best from people. And I know as I'd like to develop teams and really trying to understand what each individual brings to that team. Where do you need some technology savvy? Where do you need some business savvy? Where do you need some network or tech savvy, AI savvy? And trying to make sure that you've got a well-rounded team that's diverse, that has great talents that are going to challenge each other, be open, candid, honest. And that's probably the fourth. And then probably the fifth thing that's gotten me to where I'm at is humility, being open, transparent, candid, and really being there for people and helping to treat people as humans and giving them that space to operate it, to be their fulls. So hopefully that helps.
Very much so. This is a great example of collaboration because, if we had two more people on this conversation now and they created their lists, then you've got a comprehensive list. And it can also make you actually reform your own list because it's a big question that I asked. Now, I ask you that same question tomorrow, you'll probably answer it differently because it's such a really it's a very difficult question to answer. What got you to where you are? Because it's 1,000 things, it's 1,000,000 things, and sometimes the smallest of things, one interaction that you have with somebody that can change the way you think. And first thing you said, Melissa, is natural curiosity. Now you've got that. Jim's got that. I'm naturally curious. I'm always wondering how and why. If you don't have that natural curiosity, can you teach yourself to be curious?
Yeah, I think you can. You have to, find different ways to learn, continuously improve. Mindset is always the thing that comes to mind to me is, what did I do today? How can I do it better tomorrow? And having that sort of mindset and then figuring out different ways of, it might be experiences, it might be networking, it might be sitting alongside of somebody and mimicking what they're doing. And just continue to want to do better the next day is going to generally get you to that curiosity sort of framework. And I would say that I didn't come out of college being a super, super curious. I was probably more introverted, but as experiences grew, as the different opportunities grew, you become more curious and you want to do better and you want to learn from those that are doing fabulous things and showing up differently. So yeah, I think it can be learned.
I think it can be learned. I think that's why you have to have personal development plans. Every person should have a personal development plan, and you should make yourself uncomfortable. You should try new things to work your way through it, to get curious, to try and be successful at something you've never done, and truly continue pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone. And I think that will naturally lend itself to being more curious.
I often say, and I've interviewed 1,000,000 people as you both over the course of your careers, and often the person who gets the job is the person that asks a lot of questions and asks a lot of the right questions because it tells you how people think. A lot of people, when they go into interviews, they think they're just there to answer questions. Well, it's a two-way street. And if you are not asking questions, especially the right questions or the right follow-up questions, let's face it, our whole business is about problem solving. And the only way that you can solve problems is if you ask the right questions. Because we've all been in situations where a business leader will say, I want this built. And then the technologist runs off and builds it, brings it back, and the business owner or the stakeholder says, well, that's not what I wanted. Well, why is that? Well, it's never just one side, it's both sides, but often it's because the technologist didn't ask the questions to truly understand what the business leader really wanted. And the people that where I see the most successful outcomes is where there's that dynamic, where there's a back and forth between two people that are truly trying to understand what's the real problem that you're trying to solve. And sometimes, the person that thinks they've got a problem to solve is really a different problem. But unless somebody asks the right questions, you're never going to get to the bottom of that. And obviously, we see a lot of wasted time and money if that dynamic doesn't work the way that it should. And I'm sure you both agree. You've both been in those situations, right?
No doubt. I also think even before that, even before you get into the conversation or an interview, do your due diligence. Look for insights, look for people who may have worked in an organization that you're going to be talking to. Look for insights into the person that's going to interview you. How do they think?
Yeah.
What questions are they going to likely ask you? And talk to folks that maybe have worked with them or worked alongside them or know them. And do that due diligence even before you get into those thoughts and those key moments, because you're going to be better prepared and probably understand where that individual is going to ask. That's a little bit even in front of asking the right questions and being that curious. Do your homework and do your due diligence up front.
Preparation is everything. Couldn't agree more, Melissa.
I would say that, and go in with authentically what you want. Understand what you like and what you don't like about the roles you've had. Go in understanding and being able to articulate what culture you want in your role. And if you don't get the role based on you being your authentic self, it probably wasn't a great fit. And 12 months after you got it, you'll be looking for a new job anyway. So it's about not only understanding who you're going to be interacting with, but who you are and what you want out of that process and what's next.
Melissa, something you said after Jim commented was, I could see a light bulb went on. I have seen a shift in the way that technologists are viewed, especially technology leaders, in the 30 years I've been in this game. And you said you're a business thinking person first and using technology to back up your business mind. I want to talk more about that. What does that really mean? What does that really mean when you boil it down? And has that changed for you? Did you always think that way, or did that change?
I think it's definitely been a more exemplified throughout my career, but I think from day one, I had interest in what is the business trying to solve? Where are the problems? Again, I have lots of questions and a need for details and understanding. So it's normal for me to go, even today, to go do a side-by-side with customer service or with the incoming service center where all the mail comes in and do a walkthrough and understand how they do their work. I've always done that my whole career because then I could step back and go, holy cow, there are so many opportunities here where I can help them. How many of us know there's so much great technology and great technology solutions out there that no one uses because nobody asks for them? But if you're actually developing modern, cool solutions that solve or exemplify growth or innovation where a business needs it, that's where the power to me of technology comes, when it's solving something or enabling something that they may or may not have known. But if I don't take my business partners along or act like a business person to help generate those ideas, I don't think they'll go very far.
And why don't they ask for them?
Sometimes they don't know what's possible.
Yeah.
Or they don't know sometimes what they need. Sometimes I've gone deeper in their process than they have to say, wow, I didn't know I had that gap in this step. Yes, help me solve it. And let's quantify what it would mean to solve it together. They don't sometimes know the art of what's possible with technology. And I don't think that they always should. I think that's why there's a partnership with the tech organization.
Melissa, I think you just hit the nail on the head. I think it actually starts back to where we introed this whole conversation. We both view ourselves as business leaders with technology outfits on. And, it starts there, and it really job shadowing, site visits, relationship building with the leaders in those areas. It doesn't have to be the C-suite. It could be those that are, managing the individuals that are on the floor. and really starting to understand their processes. With today's technology, the people that are doing the processes may not know that what they're doing could be automated and they could be doing higher level work. And curiosity is, how do we make this better with that continuous improvement sort of mindset? But it's got to be, you have to understand the business first and foremost to automate it. And if you're not going to take the time to meet the people, to understand the processes, to meet the leaders, understand the cost levers, the revenue levers, it's really hard to automate it. And I think you got to have that mindset of, I need to understand it first. And then I'm going to help the business and partner roll up the sleeves and bring ideas and bring, every idea is not going to be good, but bring some ideas that will help to get them to a better spot. And I think that's how you get the whole business to be better.
Let's face it, you're going back 30 years, technology it wasn't at the forefront of businesses. It's very, very different today. So there was this, we talk about order taker mentality. If you're in an order taker mentality, you're in the 80s still at the very best. And I obviously 100% agree with what you've both said. But often most technology initiatives are driven by the business. They'll come to you and say, Melissa, we've got this thing. We need technology to fix it. Can you help? Well, yes, we can. But going back to what you said, there's also a proactive component to it where you can see things they don't see because their lens is very different to yours. Now, let's go back to something you both completely agree on. And you've both done an incredible job of this in the course of your careers because of who you are, and that's developing relationships. So how do you develop the relationships? First of all, how do you identify the people that you could potentially help and create a proactive mechanism where you create some relationships with given people and given parts of the business, and then you start to use that curiosity and ask them about their business, and you start to dive in and you come to them with ideas. For not even necessarily a CIO, it could be anybody that's a technology leader that can do this, right? They can go in. I'm sure if any one of the leaders on your team came to you and said, hey, I had a cup of coffee with this person over there in customer service, and we got into this conversation, and I really think we can help.
I'd ask, what is it?
What is it? Right, because you're curious. Now, we had one of our Link to Leadership sessions this morning, and I've talked about it a little bit on some of my prior podcasts, but it's so wonderful, and you both have me involved in that. It's a wonderful training program for early career leaders, and there's always something that's great that comes from it. And it was discussed this morning by one of the leaders to encourage the technologists, because a lot of technologists tend to stay in their own technology bubble. They'll create relationships with people in the four walls of where they work or in the same group, but they tend not to reach out to people that are not in the technology arena. And, this one technology leader highly encourage everybody, go make friends, and being an introvert is no excuse. Get out of your comfort zone and go make friends with somebody in marketing or in procurement or whatever aspect of the business, and use that curiosity to ask them and understand their role. Goes back to something you said earlier, Melissa. It's extremely important that technologists truly understand where they fit into the grand scheme of things. And when they do, what I've seen happen is people are much more engaged when they realize how important their role is.
I love that. And, just starting a new role not too long ago, it gave me the opportunity to sit down with all of our leaders in our organization. And how is IT working? How are your systems progressing? Are they giving you what you need? And just really asking open-ended questions and allowing that space for them to fill it in. And you really get some insights. And are we fulfilling their needs? Do they need more? Do they need better? Do they think we're back in the 80s? And fortunately, some of that is, yeah, we are. And, we need to do much better. But just allowing those relationships, what it does then is it opens up the avenue for them to come to you, bring ideas or bounce ideas off of you. And it's really it's a great opportunity to open up those silos. It then starts to springboard into other areas, or go talk to so-and-so, and you just start to build that network inside. But you have to have that that all boils back to curiosity and being proactive and wanting to do more, and really opening up those relationships with folks that can help help bring ideas and help be sounding boards for you as well.
Now, you said something that struck a nerve with me, and a good nerve. Building a network inside. We often think of, and we've talked about networking and obviously the principles of networking, the importance of it. And people often think of networking as just outside their four walls of where they work. Well, the three of us know that's not true. You have to start with inside your four walls. So, Melissa, can you talk to that a little bit, please?
I think relationships are the long game. And I mean that in a good way. We talk about things like it's a sprint. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon. In relationships are a marathon and the payoff is great. And there are things you have to invest in it. It's not one-sided, right? I want to connect with this person because I would like this, this, and this. And we all know the people that reach out that you haven't talked to for 5 years that now have been maybe released from a role and want to have a coffee. Well, I've never had a coffee in my life. Literally never had a coffee in my like I'd love to go have a chai tea maybe, but you have to you have to maintain relationships, and it has to be two-way and authentic and making a connection and helping coach each other as partners throughout a journey. And I think that part of having great relationships, especially with your business partners internally, is having a super high say-do ratio. I can go in and make a really big splash and say, oh, I can do this for you, and I can do that for you, and I can do this for you. But if I can't really do it, I don't really think that relationship's too sustainable for too long. I don't know how long you can string someone along. So it's about being vulnerable and being authentic and being truly invested in their success and the company's success as well, to maintain that relationship over time. And it pays huge dividends to have partners like that.
And relationships, obviously, the world revolves around relationships, and they're very complicated, as we know. And there's a term called relationship equity that some guy came up with a while back. And that principle is pretty simple. Go out of your way to do things for others without asking for anything in return. It's such a simple concept. But not a lot of people, in my opinion, actually live by that motto. And it's more of a quid pro quo. I'll do this for you if you do something for me in return. But what I found is, if you live your life that way, good things happen. And I know you both are very much that way as well in your careers, in your lives. Why is that?
By the way, there's a famous author who wrote a book, Relationship Equity, and I forget what his name is. Dang it.
I know him, Jim, but he won't sign my book.
If you only had a relationship with him. Richard, you touched upon it, is the world evolves around relationships, whether that's in your personal life, whether that's in your professional life. And that's inside the perimeter of where you work as well, and your network externally. So one of the things that I did is, basically is you come into a role, and with the leadership role, it's like, okay, who's all using our systems inside the perimeter? And who's not using our systems that probably ought to be using our systems? And you start to kind of gain some different categories of users. And then you start to make relationships with, where the mass of your technology is being used, and where it's working, where it's not. And you start to build those categories. And those are the important relationships to build and to harness and to cultivate, so you can use that relationship to help further automate and to get to where you want to go. And with those business partners at your side, and really helping to develop the trust, doing what you say you're going to do, being candid, being open, and really starting to use that as kind of your sounding boards and your springboards to better automation and helping them. That's how business runs.
Right.
And it is so damn important to do that internally. And that's what really separates a lot of the mediocre leaders to be top notch.
Couldn't agree more. What do you think, Melissa?
I think sometimes you have to be fearless. So Jim just said something that's important. A lot of times people really try to smooth the edges in a tough message, right? Like, I'm not going to make the timeline, or our data warehousing is really bad, or I don't have the right talent to do the kind of work you're asking me to. But that's exactly what needs to be said sometimes. at all levels, at all conversations. And if there's authenticity with it and a plan to solve it and a way to get there, that's an even better story from your team all the way up to the executive level to have that plan. I mean, I have different strategies. I think I talk to people and there's like, well, I'm thinking about switching companies or jobs. And I first start with why? What are you
Right.
looking to get out of it? Because I think people very much underestimate there is a huge tax when you switch companies. You start over in terms of developing relationships and credibility and understanding how to navigate and get things done. And if you're somebody who likes to know those things and to just navigate and deliver and kind of get things done, that's hard because you start at knowing nothing,
Right.
in terms of the company. And so, my strategy is always, I mean, and by the way, I think it's great development to do it because it's hard. It's really good development to do it, but it is hard. And I don't think people are always prepared for that. But my approach always going in is, I'm going to go to the willing. I'm going to listen. I'm going to understand the needs of the company, both my team and the business needs. I'm going to determine where we have some cool opportunities or ways to fix things. And then I'm going to go to the willing. I'm not going to force everything on everybody. Like, I've now created a standard and we're all going to do this, because I always feel like we're going to go to the willing and we're going to knock it out of the park. And then everybody's going to knock on our door. And we're going to drive the right level of change that we need to implement this. But if you start with the willing, you have those bonds from day one. You have the practice of the willing. You have people that understand what you're trying to accomplish. And then the people that were maybe waiting on the sidelines in a transformation are like, okay, I'm all in. I see it works now. I'm all in. But sometimes you need to let those people dip their toes a little and watch it happen. And I think a huge thing is understanding company culture and team culture. And you can't do that by watching on the sidelines. You have to do that by asking questions and going at every level in the organization. What's working? What's not working? What would you like to see change? How do you think we can be more effective? And truly taking that all into account when you determine what you can and can't do, so that, again, your say-do ratio stays very high. Don't worry about, especially, all these buzzwords that we've had over time: big data, mobile first, AI, all of them. I've been around what feels like about 100 years, but I always say, we're not looking for the home run today, and we hope we get one, but lots of base hits equal a lot of runs. You keep hitting base hits, it's a lot of runs in.
Yeah. And I think as a new leader or a new individual in an organization, get in and you might have a few grounders at first, but then you're going to start hitting singles and you're going to hit a lot of singles and throw in a double, etc. And then pretty soon, you are scoring a lot of runs and you're gaining a lot of individuals that are going to want to jump on your team and really help support and offer you new ideas to hit those home runs. So I think that is it. And it gets back to kind of cultivating those relationships, finding those people who really want to develop and really help with the company in terms of automation, help you, and be there for that long-term relationship.
You're going to have to explain all those baseball references during our break. I've still got more to cover with Melissa Flicek from Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Minnesota and Jim Graham from NMDP. Next time on Relationship Equity, we'll share some insights on what it takes to build a strong team.
As you're building high-performing teams, you have to really do a deep assessment on your team. And what is your team strong at? What is your team really, really good at? What are they weak at? Where do they have gaps? Do they need to bring in some outside savvy that maybe has been there, done it in a different industry?
This has been Relationship Equity. If you want to take your career, your business, or your personal relationships to the next level, reach out to Richard at yorksolutions.net. You can also get Richard's book, Relationship Equity, your cornerstone investment to great gains in business and life, on Amazon now. Relationship Equity with Richard Walker is a production of Forbes Books.